You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram.
Hi, my name is Yousuf Gilani. I am the president of the Norwegian Cricket Federation, and it's a great honor to be on this podcast, Dibbly Dobbly.
Hi, I'm Pooja Kumari. I'm the coach for the Norwegian national women's cricket team, and you're watching the Dibbly Dobbly podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly podcast. And on the podcast, we have started a new series on the podcast looking at associate nations within cricket and how they are developing the game in their country. Many of us cricket fans know so much about the established cricketing countries and not enough on the associate nations who play cricket. So it would be nice to learn about those associate countries, and via the podcast, people can learn more as well. For today's Associate Cricket Series episode, we are discussing all things Norway cricket. And joining me to discuss and talk all things Norway cricket is the president of the Norway Cricket Federation, Yousuf Gilani, and Norway's women's cricket team coach and former player, Pooja Kumari. Yousuf and Pooja, welcome.
Thank you.
And it's great to have you here, guys, and thank you for joining us to chat about all things Norway cricket, because many people listening to this episode would associate Norway with many different other sports, mainly winter sports, because of the success of the Winter Olympics, etc. So cricket fitting into Norway, which is a summer sport, many people won't make that connection. But, you know, cricket's being played in Norway for some time, and it's really grown and developed over the years. So a lot of good work's being put into it to get it to where it is today. So I think a lot of people will learn more from listening to this episode, from listening to you, Yousuf, and Pooja speak about Norway cricket in general. I think a lot of people will get a lot out of this episode today, which is the aim of this Associate Cricket Series, is to educate people on these associate countries, because there's much more to cricket than the full member countries, really. And that's the associate countries. They make up cricket as well, and are part of the cricketing family. So it'll be interesting to hear your insights, and hopefully people will learn more from listening to this episode today. But before we do that, Yousuf and Pooja, as I do with all my guests that I've interviewed on the podcast, I'd like to take them back to when they first got into cricket. It's been very fascinating listening to people's memories on how they started to get into cricket. So Yousuf and Pooja, let's go back to the very beginning, growing up. I know that's a long time ago. Time flies. What were your earliest memories of watching, playing, and even going to the cricket? And who were some of your cricketing idols that you admired growing up, if you had any?
Thank you, first of all, for having time for the Norwegian Cricket Federation and this podcast. I, by myself, got involved in cricket in my early 18 years. I was 18 years old when some people from India and Pakistan moved to my city, Drammen. And they started playing cricket. Obviously, I've been seeing cricket on television and had such. My favorite was Sachin Tendulkar, Imran Khan, Wasim Akram, all these huge legends, Sir Williams. And then when there was struggling for cricket facilities, ground, practice nets, and there wasn't that good in Norwegian. So that's how I got involved in cricket, and then I started helping them up to the municipalities and was writing some applications for the municipality to access the cricket facilities for these boys, and that's how I was involved with cricket development in Norway in the late 80s and the beginning of 1990.
Yeah, that's Pooja. Your introduction.
I grew up in India in the 90s, and coincidentally today I'm speaking to you from India, so it's kind of very nice. So I grew up in the 90s, so that itself says that my cricketing idol has to be Sachin Tendulkar and nobody else. Because in those days, I mean, that's how it was. of course, now over the years, I have many other idols in the cricketing world. So I used to play a lot as a child in India. But then, ever since I finished school, I moved and worked in different countries. And then for 20 years, I was just watching and reading cricket, but nothing to do with playing cricket. And then I moved to Norway in 2018, and then suddenly met people at work who were playing cricket, and they invited me to the nets. And then, really after a gap of almost 20 years, I started playing again. And then as soon as it was 3 years in Norway, I was eligible to play for the national team. As per ICC rule, I was playing for Norway. And in my first series itself, I was the captain for the Norwegian team. And then I continued to play for them, play for the team. And then very recently, I was then offered to become the coach of the women national team. So I just took this position from January.
Yeah, well, you haven't been long into the role, only this year. So,
Yes.
yeah, so it's a quick transition from playing to coaching, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's how associate cricket is, right? You have to wear many hats. You have to do your job.
Sort of like the old days, isn't it, in cricket? That you didn't
Mhm.
have a coach, but many sports you had a coach and player role. So I suppose,
Yes.
it's the same there. But, well, that's just the way it is in associate cricket, isn't it? You just have to, as you said, put on many hats and do many
Exactly.
things because you have
Mhm.
limited resources, as we'll talk about as we get deeper and deeper into our chat today. But it was quite fascinating listening to your introductions into the game and how you got into it and got involved with it. Does any particular memories stand out for you when you were playing the game in those early formative years, both of you? You just look back and say, oh, I remember that moment. That's a nice cricketing moment for me, or memory. So if you would like to share that with us.
There are many golden moments in cricket. As you started your introduction, Norway is actually a ski nation. Winter sports is huge, and we are really doing very good in the winter sports. And in the handball, indoor sports is also doing great achievements all over the world. I have many golden moments regarding the cricket, even though cricket development and cricket high movements, which have been made by the international stars who have been the idol for many of us, and at this local ground as well, because when cricket started in Norway, the Norwegians didn't know about cricket. They have heard about cricket, that it lasts for 5 days and they can't understand the rules, they can't understand how to play, etc., etc. Even though cricket is the second largest sports in the world after football by playing members. So there have been many golden moments in Norway regarding development and regarding how they have achieved small steps for coming where we are now. And I personally are so glad to have our first woman coach in Norwegian history, Norwegian cricket history. She is at your podcast now, Pooja Kumari. And having her on our team, even though she was playing for the Norwegian national team, but as you asked about who were our idol, I told Sachin Tendulkar, Imran Khan. Pooja said Sachin Tendulkar, but we didn't mention any women because they are rising now. In the next couple of years, when you're going to have this podcast, and then you're going to ask who is the idol, maybe we're going to mention Sania, we're going to mention Pooja Kumari, we're going to mention other names. But my golden memory in Norway is not for playing cricket. It's when we got our first ground, when we got our first practice pitch for the cricketers. And that was actually a huge moment when people came all over to England for making the cricket pitch, which was actually a bit exotic for these Norwegians as well, because they didn't know how to make it. And we weren't professional. We have only seen the pitch on the television or pitch playing in India or Pakistan. So, and when we had these facilities, when people came to the grounds and was playing, and if you're gonna maybe laugh, the first cricket ground in Norway was where they put the garbage. It was a garbage place where they collect all the garbage, and the place was like locked down for nothing. And there, the municipality said you can play cricket. And the first cricket matches was played at Grønmo. It's a recirculation place where you put garbage and they make all the stuff. And there they were playing cricket in the early 80s.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
quite interesting.
Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt. I see I have only 3% on my phone and I don't have my charger. So if I fall off, Pooja, could you continue the podcast? You
Sure,
know
I
about
think-
the history, but I'm with you guys.
Okay, sure.
Well,
Okay.
well, that's something different. We didn't have to experience this in my time of doing the podcast, interviewing someone and their phones running out of battery.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm actually in the Tesla, so but I don't have this.
Charger, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, fan in Norwegian is shit. Okay.
Right.
Oh yeah. Anyway, well, that's something new for me that I've never
Mhm.
experienced this before doing the podcast in my 3 years of doing this. I've never heard anyone say that my phone is running out and I don't have a charger.
No, I'm actually. I can show you this. Oh, okay, no problem.
We all good? We all good?
Yes.
Right. we'll push on and see where we get to. Pooja, your memories?
Yeah, I mean, of course, as I said, early days were in India, and the first thing I remember about cricket is the 96 World Cup. That's my first memory of cricket. But just as Yusuf was saying about the cricket grounds in Norway, that's a very striking memory for me because even though I always played cricket as a child and watched cricket, I have never been to a cricket ground, like a real cricket ground. So the first time I ever saw a cricket ground was in Norway.
Yeah.
So before that, I've never been to a cricket ground. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Mhm.
That's very interesting to hear that. Obviously,
Mhm.
being from India, obviously a lot of cricket grounds over there in India.
Yeah, exactly.
And
But
not-
like a proper real cricket
Yeah.
ground. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
No, that's very interesting, and it's I
Mhm.
suppose it's a very a good thing to experience. I suppose in a non-cricketing country like Norway,
Of course.
to experience
Yeah.
that is something different, which is
Yeah,
which is-
because we were just playing kind of informally in any small space and in the streets and those kind of things, right, back in the 90s. So yeah, experience a cricket ground was like very, very striking. Yeah.
yes, it can be.
Yes.
So yeah, no, definitely. So it's good to hear both of your memories on how you got into cricket and your journey and the connection that you have with Norway cricket, as we will discuss as we go through this chat.
Mhm.
Despite difficulties with technical difficulties on Yusuf's side.
I just turned off my camera so the battery will stay a bit more.
Oh, that's good. That's good. At least it will give us some time, I suppose. Yeah, well, there you go. Recording a podcast live. All these bloopers and that. We'll keep it in. It's just one of those things, isn't it? Yeah, so we'll push on despite that. So as I said, it was great hearing your memories and your journey into cricket, which is fantastic. Everyone has a different path and journey into the game. So it was nice to hear your path and journey into the game that we all love, and that's the game of cricket. So thank you for sharing that, both of you. Really appreciate that. I thought Yusuf and Pooja to start off this interview on Norway cricket, I thought we'd talk about the history of cricket in Norway, because you can learn a lot about cricket from its history, and the history of cricket in Norway is quite interesting. So, Yousuf, Pooja, can you give us a brief overview on the history of cricket in Norway, how it all started and became to be, really?
Yeah, regarding to the history books, cricket were played in Norway in 1817 or 1818, I think, through this business trade. People came, and the first cricket match was played in mid of 1880s. But the first time cricket really established in Norway was when the first immigrants came from Pakistan in late 60, 70, and then they started to play cricket, and then they got accompanied by the Indian origin, Pakistani origin, and some from Sri Lanka, and even though from England. And then they started to play cricket because those guys couldn't play football or any other sports. They were used to play cricket from their home country. So the first people who started cricket in Norway in a proper way made a division. They went to Sweden because Sweden had much better facilities than Norway in 80s at that time. If you see the cricket development history in Norway, that has really been a nice journey for the sport in Norway. And very soon people saw who was included in cricket that cricket is not only a game or a sport, it's actually the social, there are many social benefits as well. You get included by the team members was helping each other in getting jobs and getting established in the social society, etc. So on behalf of that, the team increases. There were more teams. Even then, in the mid of I think it was in 2009, the first woman team was established. Maybe Pooja knows the exact year, but the first girl team who was playing was in 2009 or 2010, and then they got regular in the national team, etc. in 2014, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So the history of cricket in Norway is actually a history which need to be known because Norway is the north country in the world where cricket is played. Even though I don't know if they play in Iceland, Pooja. Is there any?
Yeah, they do play in Iceland, but we are still north, right? If you go to Tromsø, then we are more north than Iceland.
Yeah, that's So that's actually. And even though in Australia cricket is huge, last I visited Australia, I remember you got the atmosphere in Australia regarding cricket. You can't compare it to other countries. There is something special in Australia, India, Pakistan, the atmosphere around the cricket regarding cricket here in Norway, which is actually limited. For you can't play cricket in the winter time. It's a limited season from May till end of September.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely, because of the harsh winters over there. And yeah, I suppose it's the case in those European countries, isn't it? When winter comes, then you got to pretty much go indoors. And
and we definitely have the shortest season, probably, right? Because our winters are very long. So if you go a bit south to Germany or to Spain, they play much longer, but we play really a very short season.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. When I spoke to Estonia cricket, when I spoke to David and Ragnar over there a few weeks back on the podcast, they said the same thing. You know, in Estonia, the winters can be a bit harsh and a short season. So you got to try and adapt to different climatic conditions and weather conditions, I suppose, in that part of the world where Norway is. So you got to make do what you have. But yeah, really interesting to hear how the game and the origins of the game started in Norway, really. Because every country has a different history when the game's introduced over there. A lot of Commonwealth countries like Australia, India, etc. Cricket was brought by the British, of course, and then you have other countries that have a connection to that sort of time and era where the British came and brought cricket with them. But in other countries, it's a bit different. It's very different to that. So, every country has a different introduction into the game and in the history of it. So I think a lot of people listening to this episode today would learn something new about Norway cricket and say, oh, that's how it started and that's how it was introduced into the country and that's how it came about. So I think a lot of people will take something out of that from listening to our chat today. So thank you, Yousuf and Pooja, for giving us a brief overview on the history of the game in Norway. Certainly, I learned something new today from just listening to you speak about that. So thank you for sharing that with us. So Yousuf and Pooja, I thought we'd talk about the Norway national cricket teams, the women's and men's teams. It'd be good to gain your insights on the two teams and learn more about their achievements, the players' stories, because many of the players come from diverse backgrounds, as you just mentioned before when we talked about the history of cricket in Norway. And obviously, Pooja being the women's coach and now a player, you can give us more insights of the women's team. And obviously, Yousuf, you can do the same as well with the women's and the men's, and from your point of view and telling us how they're going and tracking along. But Yousuf and Pooja, for those who may not know a lot about the Norway women's and men's teams, can you tell us more about them, the players, and some of their stories?
There have been there are many stories to tell about the players here, even though their background from India and Pakistan, where they played first-class cricket, and as you said, this is a sport which the immigrants brought to Norway. This is not a natural sport for the Norwegians. Even though baseball isn't nationally, or football isn't it, all these sports are actually from the British colonists. There have been many movements for these cricket players. I remember a certain guy who came from Madras in India. He was a student and got involved to this cricket clubs. Regarding all these the players in the team who took care of him. He just had lost his family in Madras in an accident and was studying in Norway. And then when he got included through cricket and that journey he had.
Oh, I think Yousuf is cut off because of his battery. Pooja, you can take over.
I can take it a bit further. But yeah, I think what Yousuf was trying to convey is that the community feeling is very strong in the cricket environment, because this gives you a social system, this gives you friends, and so the community feeling is very, very strong, and that you can see even in the national teams, right? So the men's national team was doing really well in the early part of this century, so in the early 2000s, because as Yousuf was saying, these are the players who played first class in India or Pakistan and then had moved to Norway. So their training and then their early days of game was, of course, much higher quality. So even though cricket was new in Norway, the national team was doing very well. And then over the years now, we have groomed players in Norway, and then so these players have developed in Norway, and now we have kind of a second wave of going forward with the men's national team right now. About the women's team, the first national team for women's was established in 2014, but that time we did not have the T20I international status, which came only in 2018. So then the first time we played a T20I was in 2019 when the team traveled to France. And after that, we have been regularly playing. Of course, it was affected by Corona. But then ever since COVID was gone, then we have been playing quite regularly as the women's national team. And it is still a development team, of course. And then ever since 2014, also the graph goes up and down because players are no longer there. And then you have to recruit again and then develop all over again. But that's how it is in the women's cricket.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely those ups and downs, and the men's team share those same ups and downs as well as the women's team, trying to get better.
Exactly. It's just that women have shorter playing careers as compared to men. So the ups and downs are more frequent and more drastic when it comes to the women's game, whereas men's game, because they generally play longer, they play for at least 15 to 20 years. So then there is a good phase where they can players can pass on right to the next generation of players. But in women, sometimes, like what happened to the women cricket in Norway, that in 2016 suddenly it just disappeared.
Yeah,
and then we had to just restart again.
That's probably the case in many associate countries, is that
yes,
you see that where players on both sides, men and female, can't really keep playing cricket. There are other parts of their life take over, and obviously you don't get paid as much. You're not professional. It's more of a volunteer sort of basis, or just playing because you love it. Which can be
mostly it's that you love the game and then you do everything about it.
Definitely. In terms of the women's team, because obviously the head coach, of course, of the women's team, and you were embarking on that journey this year, as you mentioned. You just started in January.
Yes.
So you've only been in the role for like a couple of months or something like that. What are you trying to instill on the team in terms of being coach, the style of play that you want the women's team to have when they go and play other countries or tournaments, for example? What's your philosophy on that?
Sure. So as I just told you, it is still a development team, right? We are still recruiting players straight into the national team. And there are like around 50, 60 women who are playing cricket, and then there are younger girls who are playing cricket. So the pool is not very big. So even though we are a national team, we are still a development team. So for me, the most important thing to build is that we should have a core philosophy of the team around which we can then build the team. And what I've been telling the girls is that I just want to take this idea from Aristotle, where the sum of the things can be greater than those things, essentially. So 1 + 1 can be more than 2. So if we take all our strengths together and build a team out of it, it should be greater than the individuals. So that's the core philosophy right now around which I'm trying to build this team. And then what we want to do is have the girls are used to training, so we already have a very good training culture. Now this has to transition to a performance culture where they can perform in real game situations, under pressure, in different conditions, right? So we need to now build this performance culture, and if the process goes right, then of course we'll enter in a phase where we will have the winning culture. So it's a journey we have just started.
Yeah, definitely. That's very understandable. And as you said, developmental, just building the basics up really, and taking it game by game and seeing where we get in, see where we get to at the end of a certain period of time, and see if there's some improvement, and set some goals and some ambitions, hopefully to achieve one day. So that's encouraging. That's really good. Are the girls keen to learn more and wanting to get better and develop their skills?
Definitely. I mean, it's their inner motivation, but as you just said, right, it's not that people are paid to play cricket or there is a very lucrative career when you play cricket. It has to be the inner motivation and the enjoyment that they get out of those sessions.
Yeah.
So yeah, they definitely enjoy, and then they put in a lot of time to get better, because it's not easy to start a sports when you've grown up. As a child, when you play, it's a different game altogether. But when
Yeah.
you start a new sports at a certain age, it's never easy.
No, it's not. It's
Yeah,
not. It's, it's going to take time to learn a skill or skills in cricket.
exactly. And cricket is a very skillful game, right? And then you need to learn multiple skills. It's not even just one thing.
Yes,
Yeah,
batting, bowling, fielding.
building, exactly. And each one in its own is a huge skill
Yes,
set. Yes.
yes. But you have a good coaching team behind you, helping you as
Yes.
coach.
Yeah. So in Norway, how we have is like we have a coach, three coaches essentially in the coaching team. So we have a coach for the men's team, for the under 19 boys team, and then for the women team. And together with us, we have a fitness and conditioning coach. So we form a team, and then we are working with each other. And then the coach for the men's team, who's Jishan Siddiqui, he oversees the whole thing, and then we plan together and we work together.
Yeah, yeah. Very encouraging to hear that. Definitely
Mhm.
a good team around you to help the women's team get better and progress, which is what you need. But obviously, limited resources in associate cricket, isn't it? So you don't have
Yes,
those
definitely.
people.
But we are also benefiting from a Nordic partnership.
Mm,
So we are in a partnership with Finland, Denmark, and Sweden. So then we have our camps together and we play a Nordic Cup. And Estonia has been a part of that recently. So they are not formally inducted into the group, but they are invited to the Nordic event. So that's how I know Ragne.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah,
Hmm.
she's very enthusiastic, Ragnar. When I
Yes,
spoke to her,
yes. I have played with her. So I was on a summer trip last year to Estonia in Tallinn. And then I just went to the ground and played with her very informally.
yeah, no, she's very enthusiastic about cricket. She loves it.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
fantastic. That's what you want to see from uh, all cricketers, really. That's why you play the game, to enjoy it and to love it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the
There's literally there's nothing else. It's just you enjoy it. You have a very strong passion for it, and then you follow it.
definitely. That's what the game of cricket can do from many different parts of the world. People have a connection with the game, as we've already talked about and discussed. So, in terms of the women's team culture, culturally, I've always asked this question to many people, Pooja, because associate countries, as we've already discussed, with Norway, you have a lot of migrants and immigrants and people that come from different countries that play for these associate countries. So they don't
Mhm.
often speak the native tongue or the language. So they don't speak Norwegian. So how you've gone about that in terms of making sure everyone understands everyone on the field or in general when they're speaking with each other. What's your method and policy when it comes to that?
Sure. Yeah, we have a mixed group. So we do have people who are not who are not born and brought up in Norway, and these are mostly people in their like early 30s or late 30s who have migrated to Norway, and then they're playing like cricket, like me, how I was when I was a player. And then we have a bunch of young girls who are actually born and brought up in Norway. So they obviously speak Norwegian, but then some people don't. But then, of course, English is always there to help us. And everybody is very accommodative. It's a good bunch of players. And then it's very important for me that there is mutual respect, there is trust in the team, right? And there has to be mutual respect for each other. So that would be the really core of the culture of the team.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I couldn't agree more. Excuse me. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. It's so important to have that respect and have that as a core value of any sporting team or cricket team, and just build off that really, which is encouraging to hear. That's often the
Yes, of
biggest.
course. Because the team is always before an individual player, right? So that's what we always talk about.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people need to realize that in cricket, it's a team sport first, individual second. Same with milestones and all that stuff. You don't play milestones.
Exactly.
It's all about the team.
Because at the end of the day, you want to perform well as a team, win as a team, compete as a team, right? So, yeah.
That's right. Have you seeked outside advice on how to go about things as the women's coach? Have you talked to other coaches in the women's game about ideas and philosophies?
As I said, we have a Nordic partnership, right? So then the coaches, we talk often, we have camps together. In addition to that, the European branch of ICC, they have established a cohort for all the women coaches in Europe. So I'm part of that cohort. And then we had 6 webinars last year as a part of this cohort. So that was very, very useful because we had some very senior people from the UK coming and talking to us. We had the coach for the Netherlands under 19 girls team talking to us. So that series was very helpful. And now I have a community of coaches. So we are this group of coaches. You can shoot any question. People will share their experiences. So that's very useful.
Yeah, definitely. Is there any external pressure or expectations in terms of both teams, actually the women's and men's, for Norway? Because in associate cricket, which, excuse me, as in associate cricket, as I was saying, rankings are a big part of whether an associate nation gets more funding or not, because the higher you finish, the more money and funding you will get. So is there any pressure on the teams every time they go out that they have this expectation on their shoulders that if we, put in a really good effort, we can, help out Norway in the best possible way we can in terms of the rankings and funding when it comes to that?
Sure. I can't speak for the players themselves, like especially for the men players. But there is, of course, this expectation in the environment because the aim for the men's team is to be in the top 10 in the European circuit, right? And then probably be around an overall rank of 30. So that then the funding can improve and then we can get more resources always. For the women's team, of course, we have expectation that we can come to a level where we can participate in the ICC tournaments. So essentially in the qualifiers. Because for that, what you need is internally in the country, you should have a league which is going on with 8 teams.
Yeah.
And we haven't reached there yet. So then we are not eligible to play any of these qualifiers yet. So that would be one of the major goals for the women team.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So it's still a developmental goal because what we want now is to develop the game inside the country so that we have enough women and teams playing the game so that then we can start competing in these global tournaments.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's probably one of those things that many people in associate cricket I've spoken to said, I don't have any idea how the rankings work or get calculated. A lot of people just say it's just too complicated from the ICC's point of view in terms of these rankings.
Also because we play so little, right? Like in a year, maybe we are playing 5 games. And then it depends a lot against whom you played, right? So the rankings in the associate country, I think it's not a very real number because everybody is not playing everybody. And then depending on who you played, and then you just played 4 or 5 games in the year. So yeah, it may not be a real reflection of the level of the team.
Yeah.
Just because you haven't played against other sides so often.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's one of those things that's a bit of a mismatch, I suppose, when it comes to the rankings and all that stuff, is that, it can be a better system. It can be improved. So
yes, but I have no idea how to make it a better system because then we have very few playing opportunities, right? If we were playing through the year and playing more against all other European countries, then there would be a way to measure the ranking. But right now it's Yeah.
Yeah,
There's not
right.
enough data to measure something, essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the main issue there. So in terms of the men's team, and maybe you can share some info on them, the men's team,
Mhm.
in terms of their progress. Have they been progressing well since they've embarked on their international journey? Has there been progress made over the last few years?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the last year itself, the ranking has gone up as we're talking about the ranking. But as I said, we are in a phase where there has been a change. So these players are now groomed inside Norway, right? So that's a major change, and that's the good part of it, that we are able to develop players inside Norway. The development has been really good in the recent 4 to 5 years, and they're active in the European circuit, and they're also active in this European Cricket Network, which has a lot of T10 tournaments, which of course does not affect the ranking as such. Yeah, but that gives them playing opportunities and then visibility, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very encouraging. Very encouraging signs there for the men's team. In terms of T20 World Cup qualifiers for the men, have they been improving each and every time they've participated in that particular type of event or any other events?
I mean, when we played it last time, we were in the finals of second division. So essentially, if you would have won the finals, then we can go to Division 1 and then try to qualify for the mega event. But that's how these tournaments are. You essentially have one spot and you're competing against 10 other teams. So if you're not first among those 10, then it doesn't matter. So we have been into the finals of these tournaments always, but we haven't made the jump to the next level.
Yeah.
So that's the target this year when they go to play the qualifiers. Yeah.
Definitely. And hopefully they can do well and improve and get better. And enjoy the experience, I suppose. You know, it's always
Definitely, yeah. It's just, I mean, now it's nice that the T20 game at least is expanding and there are more teams. So, of course, if there are more spots, then it becomes a bit more realistic to get those, right? If you have just one spot for so many countries, it's a little difficult.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
as you said, you have all these teams fighting for one spot.
Exactly. I mean, if you see any country qualifying to the mega event, right? They have done so by not losing a game for years. They have to just keep winning every single thing, and then they can make it to the World Cup.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a very tough journey.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yes.
But also an enjoyable one as well. You know,
Definitely, because you look forward to
Norway,
it. Yeah. Yes.
Playing at a global event, which is
Exactly.
World Cup qualifier. So it's a good opportunity to put your best foot forward and improve. So that's encouraging for the men's side. That's fantastic. To hear that, Pooja. So in terms of future series and tournaments and that, what's on the horizon for the women's and men's team going forward into the rest of the year and beyond? What are some of the series and events that you have planned?
Right. So for the men's team, of course, it's a big year because they will play the sub qualifiers for the World Cup this year. So yeah, I'm sure they're looking forward to it. And as a build up to that, they will play the Nordic Cup, which we have every year now. And they have then a couple of ECN tournaments, the T10 tournaments lined up for them.
Yep.
And for the women's, we have again the Nordic Cup lined up in the summer, which we are hosting. So this is a special year for Norway because Norway is going to host its first T20I. Yeah. So we are hosting the Nordic Cup for women. And then probably we would have another series in the autumn.
Yeah.
But we are still working that out, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good to hear. Really good to hear that you got some series and obviously tournaments that you're participating in, and big tournaments. You want to do well in them. Obviously, the men's with the qualifiers for the T20 World Cup, the women's for the Nordic Cup as well. So plenty of big series and tournaments to come this year for the.
Yes, even for the under-19 boys, it's a qualifier year. So yeah. So this is
Yes,
going to be a very busy
World
summer.
Cup as
Yeah.
well, trying to make it to that, which
Yes.
will be a good achievement if they can actually qualify for
Actually,
that.
so for the last round, the under-19 boys, they did win the second division and they went to the first division
Yeah.
where they played against Scotland and Netherlands. So it was a very good experience for them.
Yes, definitely. So it's definitely good to hear that the players coming through the ranks are really performing well and doing their best, which is fantastic. And hopefully they can make it to an under-19 World Cup as well, and represent Norway on the big stage in an under-19 World Cup, which will be a great thing if they can.
Yes.
So we'll have to wait and see on that. So that's really good to hear about the teams going forward, and that, Pooja, about these tournaments and series, which is always what you want to see. You want to see more associate countries playing more to get better and improve and develop as teams and players. Are you optimistic about the future for both teams going forward? How do you see the future for both teams going forward?
I'm very, very optimistic. So the men's team has restructured recently and they are doing really well. So I hope they can cross this barrier and then move to the next stage of the qualifiers when summer comes. For the women, we were just talking about the under-19 World Cup, right? So the girls under-19 World Cup, it happened last year for the very first time. And that's my major motivation, essentially. So, of course, I'm coaching the senior team, but then that's my major motivation because that is where I see the opportunity where I can develop girls and bring them to a World Cup eventually, let's say in 5 to 7 years from now. And then if we build that solid platform, then automatically the women team will start doing well.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the aim with which I came into coaching, and that's what I'm trying to do here now. Because if you followed the women under-19 World Cup last year for the first time, which happened in South Africa, there were countries like Rwanda and Indonesia in that tournament who have very little cricketing history. And then to top it off, Rwanda actually beat the West Indies under-19 girls team. So that game gave me like this motivation that it's a new generation with new possibilities, and you don't have to think about like put any limitation to what you dream of.
Yeah.
So of course, we can develop a Norwegian girls team who probably can go and play in a World Cup, win the World Cup. We don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely. You got to dare to dream, I suppose.
Exactly. So that's the pathway I'm working towards, where I want to develop the girls who are right now around 10, 11 years old, who can then participate in our under-19 World Cup. And when we have built this base solid, then the women cricket obviously will become better on its own, and then will also become more sustainable. So we don't have to kind of rebuild it every time. We will have a continuous flow of younger players who are coming through a performance pathway, and then that will support the women's team very well.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And let's hope that is able to be strong and continue to develop and grow as the years.
Yeah, it does take a lot of energy from people who are involved in this, right? So yeah, as you said, we really hope that we can go through this whole process.
Yeah, definitely. It's
Yeah.
really encouraging to hear that. And as you said, I agree with you there. As you said, it's a new generation of female
So
players.
then the possibilities are not limited. We can do whatever we want to, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it's good to hear that you are optimistic about the women's and the men's team going forward. And you have to be optimistic. You can't not be optimistic. Obviously,
I mean, I always look at these young kids and then just always think what they can do, right?
That's the satisfaction, isn't it? As a coach or behind the scenes of the setup, is that if you see these players achieve so much and do well,
Yes.
That's the main thing, really. And more importantly, they're having fun as well, and an opportunity to represent Norway as well.
Of course. I mean, having the flag on your chest means a lot.
It does, yes. As we can see from your jumper there, of
Yes.
course. It's always special when you represent a country, when you wear a cap or a shirt. It's got your name and the number on the back, and say, "Wow, I'm an international."
It means a lot, and especially when you work with kids, you'll realize it means so much to have that shirt. Yeah, it means a lot.
Definitely, absolutely. So I think, Pooja, everyone listening and would agree with me when I say this, is that we wish the Norway women's and men's team all the best. I'll be watching closely, of course, now. Got to get my Norwegian hat on and flag and support them.
Yes.
But, you know, yeah, I think we all really hope that they do well and keep on that upward trajectory and get better and better and develop as not only cricketers, but good people as well. That's what the game of cricket does. It teaches you life skills.
Exactly. I mean, this is what I tell in my team, that it's not just about cricket. What you learn here, you will apply in the rest of your life, right? We learn teamwork, we learn leadership. You learn how to speak up, how to absorb pressure, how to deal with different kind of things. So it is more about life,
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's why cricket's a great life teacher to all of us in those aspects, as you mentioned. But yeah, the teams, let's hope they get better. And let's hope we see a women's team from Norway qualify for a T20 World Cup.
Yes.
Same with the men's as well.
Yeah, I have been saying that it's a dream, but I hope in a couple of years I can say that it's a goal, and then we can achieve it.
Yeah, definitely. Small steps,
yes,
and
exactly.
just develop slowly. It's all about that slow grind, isn't it, with associate countries when it comes to these sort of things. But as we've already talked about, dare to dream. You can achieve anything if you set your mind to it and believe. And why not? You know, I think that's an important thing to learn in life. If you want to do something, you're passionate, believe in it, you can achieve it. Definitely Norway can achieve these. And same with all associate nations, not just Norway, but all the associate nations around the world can achieve great things. We've even saw that in Uganda recently.
For us, for associate cricket, it's very important that we grow together. Because you can't grow alone, right? You need, we need Sweden to play, we need Denmark to play, we need Estonia to play against. So if they are not growing, then our growth is also affected. So we have to grow together.
Yeah, definitely. Now that's very crucial in terms of development and growth for the game in general, really. But judging by what you've said to me today in this chat, Pooja, about women's side, obviously your involvement there being the coach and all that stuff, and the men's team, some information you shared with us there, some really encouraging signs and some really good signs going forward. So watch this space. Who knows? Be wary of Norway, the underdogs. They may be doing something special in the years to come. You may see them in a T20 World Cup for the men's, or for a women's T20 World Cup, or an under-19 World Cup in both women's and men's as well. That'd be great to see. Why not? Fantastic. So hopefully we see that in the future. So thank you for sharing that with us, Pooja, about both teams and your insights on that. Much appreciated. And I think a lot of people would have got a lot from listening to you just speak about that. So that's fantastic. You mentioned growth, Pooja, and I thought that's a perfect way to talk about the growth and development of cricket within Norway. In terms of getting cricket into local communities, clubs, schools, grassroots, etc. Now, obviously, Pooja, this is one of the challenges that many associate nations have, is how they try and introduce cricket and promote it. That's easier said than done in countries that it's a foreign sport in. So I'm sure the Norway Cricket Federation, along with other associate countries, ask themselves these same questions. You probably sit back in your chair, scratch your head and say, oh, how are we going to do all this? So how are you going to try and introduce cricket into the community?
Sure.
Grassroots cricket, establishing local cricket clubs in local communities, competitions, pathway systems, underage comps to work their way up to the highest level. And facilities, that's a big one. Nets, grounds available for people in their areas to access, making cricket accessible to people, and getting cricket into schools, which is a big thing in their programs. So Pooja, what challenges does the Norway Cricket Federation have in trying to grow and develop cricket in the Norwegian community? And do you ever see cricket becoming a mainstream sport in Norway anytime soon? So your thoughts on that?
I think it's definitely possible because cricket is a sport that is enjoyed by the children if you do it right. If you ask them to play a regular game of cricket with batting and bowling, then it can get boring. But you have to put the feeling aspect of it, and everybody enjoys it, right? Everybody likes to throw a ball, catch a ball, dive for a ball. So if done smartly, I think there is a possibility that it can become a mainstream sports in Norwegian schools. Having said that, we are very far away from that right now. So the Norwegian Cricket Federation has tried to go into schools several times over the years, but then it has not translated into anything bigger.
Yeah.
So there are school projects every year. We deliver summer schools during holidays. Yeah. But then this has not translated into the next step. And this is what we are trying now, that we do kind of structure this school project in a way so that we can follow up these children who do try cricket during summer holidays or during autumn holidays. They try for a week, but then we don't follow them up.
Yeah.
So we are trying to give this a structure so that we can actually follow them up and then induct them into the clubs and then develop these youth programs.
Yeah.
And from my personal experience, I have plans on how to do this. And I do believe that if you use the fielding aspect of the game and then simplify the game, so don't start playing a T10 or a T20, just have modified game where everybody can hit a ball, everybody can throw a ball. It will become very, very popular with the children. So these days when I go to these small school programs or introductory programs, I just start with fielding and I have a ball feeder and then everybody's trying to catch. And then we are very popular. So we are, of course, competing with 10 other games in that big ground, right? But if you start with fielding, we are popular.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of kids want to come and try. Yes, exactly.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So the idea would be that we start in a kind of a small area. So in Norway, like the schools, if you're in big cities, then within a kilometer, you can have 2, 3 schools. So if we target that one small area and then develop in, let's say, 3 schools at a time, start these inter-school tournaments, right? And then the clubs then recruit the talents from there, induct them into cricket, and then we go area by area. So this is definitely possible. It needs time and energy and resources, which we are trying to develop right now. So the coaches would be a very big part of this, right? And then now ICC has started its own coaching courses. And then in Norway, I and my colleague, we run these courses for new coaches. So then we're developing a lot of ICC level 1 coaches right now who can then start these small projects and then see through them. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It is going to take time, and it's going to be a long process, as it is for all associate countries.
Yes. So it has to have a structure, it has to have a pathway, and then you have to start thinking in terms of 3 years and 5 years, and not in terms of 1 year or some months. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I couldn't agree more with the interaction for the kids in terms of cricket. You know, it's a sport where you're pretty much in the field majority of the game, and you only bat once, and
Yes,
you probably
exactly.
bowl once in the game as well. So it's important
Exactly.
to get kids involved, otherwise they won't come back because they feel
Yeah,
like
so
it's not much of a
yeah,
thing.
when I have a new kid in my, I also do coaching for younger kids. Like this is how I started my coaching, and I'm still coaching those boys even though I took up the national team. In that group, I always, when a new kid comes, I always tell them that fielding is the most important thing. So that's how I introduce the game to them, and then they enjoy that and they understand the value of fielding, and then they're into the game after that.
Definitely. I don't mind fielding myself. I love fielding.
Yeah.
my teammates always pay me out because I dive and slide all around, and my knees are all
Exactly.
grazed grass and stains. And
Yeah, but when you're young, that's what you want to do. You want to
Yeah.
do that dive because then you become the hero, right?
yeah, it'll be like a Jonty Rhodes at
Yes.
backward point diving, yes, or a Ricky
Exactly.
Ponting with a run out, as he always used to do in his career. Yeah, but I always believe if you aim to, you got to be dirty in the field. You got to dive and slide because if you ain't dirty, then you haven't done much in the field. So
Yes, totally
gotta
agree with that.
put your body on the line and commit, I suppose. But
Yes.
I love it. It's great running around, chasing a bit of leather around, as we do with a cricket ball. Try and throw it into the stumps or take a spectacular catch or whatever.
Yes.
So it's all in part and parcel of the game, isn't it? Fielding. But there's been some great fielders in the game. And it is true of associate nations. And I had this discussion with someone in this series about associate nations, is that if you can work hard on your fielding, then that puts you at an advantage compared to other teams.
That's very true. It's also because you have to remember that these players are not contracted players and they are not playing cricket every day.
Yeah.
So then fielding automatically becomes a weaker area.
Yes.
Yes, and that's why in Norway we are really focusing in this, and we have a exclusive fitness and conditioning coach since last year, and then we have a fitness program which we follow up weekly. So we understand the value of fitness in the national teams, and which will translate into a better fielding side. Yeah, so we are looking into this definitely.
Definitely. It's one of those big things because it's like Australia in the World Cup final. Sorry to bring it up, Pooja, about India and Australia in the World Cup final last year. But look at Australia's fielding.
Yes.
That put pressure on India massively.
Yeah, totally agree with that, yes.
Didn't hit a boundary for a few overs and then a wicket fell. And then Pat Cummins did what he did and got rid of Curly, and it was all quiet and everyone stunned. But that's what Australia do, because obviously
I think, of course, fielding, as you say, they're a great fielding side. But what I like about Australia, both men and women, especially women, is the mental aspect of what they bring to the game. So they believe that they can win a game from anywhere. And the women's side, I have seen that, like, especially when India and Australia have played recently, let's say Australia loses 4 wickets and looks like India is into the game, but then no, batter number 7 will come and score a 50, and then so they always believe that they can win from anywhere, like Glenn Maxwell winning that Afghanistan game out of nowhere, right? So that mental thing that they bring, right, that assurance, that confidence, I think that is something I really aspire. Even when I coach, I want my players to be mentally very strong, to have the belief that yes, we can win, or we can play and we can compete and we can perform no matter what the situation is. Yes.
It's not over till it's over. It's not over till the last ball.
Exactly. And when we were talking about idols in the start of the interview, right? And of course, I said Sachin Tendulkar because that's how it has to be when you grow up in that time. But right now, I don't think I idolize anybody more than Meg Lanning, because she has been excellent and leading this side of superstars, where there can be a lot of problems because everybody is a superstar, but you never hear of any problem. And then she has made the team like a great culture, winning culture. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And now she's retired and she's doing things over there in the WPL at the moment for Delhi.
Exactly.
Yeah, and led them to the final. Unfortunately, RCB got the job done.
Yeah, she made it to the final both years, right? But then couldn't win the finals. Yeah.
But she was a great captain, great player for Australia.
Definitely.
One of the best in the business. Excuse me. So in terms of your perspective on the ICC, I always ask this question, Pooja, to everyone I've interviewed in this series, is that, do you think the ICC are doing a good job at helping associate countries out, or do you think they need to do more? Let's be honest, they're not the flavor of the month at the moment with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say that I don't have a very good overview to
Mm,
answer this question because I have been in cricket for a rather short time, like overall 5 years, and then as a person who would interact with ICC only for the last 2.5 years, right?
yeah.
So I don't have a very big overview of what ICC is doing for us. Uh, I am into these coaching courses and coach tutor courses, and those things I'm really enjoying what ICC is doing for the associate countries, like developing these tutors who can take like build their own coaching courses. They can build their own coach development program. Same thing for the umpiring, what they're
Mm,
doing. So that part I really like. Also, the ICC Europe with whom we interact on a regular basis, right? They're always available. They answer questions quickly and they try to come up with a solution. So that part I like. More than this, I actually don't know what they can do for us and how they can help us.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah. So
But
my exposure is about the education pathways, both in terms of coaching and umpiring. And that I think they're doing pretty well in the last couple of years. Yeah.
definitely, well, that's very good to hear. Of course,
Mhm.
they're major aspects of the game, of course, and
Yeah, because the funding and the economics is, of course, always there.
yeah,
And eventually it is about money, right? We can play only
mm,
2 series because that much we have only that much money. If we had more money,
yeah,
we can play more, we can become better. But then
definitely.
my knowledge about that is very, very limited.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. I
Yeah,
think everyone's knowledge is very limited when it comes to funding, distribution models, and all that stuff from the ICC.
exactly.
But yeah, that's definitely true that they are doing some good jobs in certain aspects of associate cricket. And a lot of people I've interviewed in this series have said the same thing. And they first have said the regional ICC bodies like Europe, Americas, they've always been helpful and on hand to help and support us when we need it, which is
Exactly. Yeah.
fantastic in terms of that aspect of the game. In terms of women's cricket, in terms of the ICC and associate players, because many, um, don't continue with the game because it's no security or contracts or whatever. The Brazil women's team, who I interviewed, Matt Featherston, are professional, and obviously Roberta I interviewed as well, Moraver Avery, um, on that, and that's been a very good thing that they've done over there in Brazil in terms of investing in their women's team, because it will give them greater success compared to the men's. They just feel like that's going to get us higher and higher, and then we can bring it down to the men's as well.
Sure.
Um, so, do you think that could be something that the ICC may consider to, help out in that regard in terms of, establishing high performance or professionalism within associate cricket, just trying to help these countries on that path?
I think that's how probably the funding model works in Europe. So we get points for everything, right? And then you get
Mhm.
points, more points for those things which you don't have. So
Yeah,
essentially, if we can develop a youth structure in among girls, which is not existing, we will get a lot of points and our funding will increase. So ICC is giving this sort of motivation to develop this side of the game. And as you mentioned, Brazil and other countries like Thailand, Thailand is also an example, right, where
yeah,
the women game became like they got formal contracts and men still don't have. So I do buy this idea because the men cricket has much more competition, right? Whereas the women cricket is pretty much even. I mean, I would say because you have, of course, Australia, England, and now India.
yeah,
But then after that, the rest of the countries are probably approachable. Even I just heard Sophie Devine from New Zealand talking yesterday, and she was saying that we don't have the depth which England or India or Australia has. So already a country like New Zealand is struggling in terms of women cricket. So the playing field when it comes to the women's game is pretty much even. And to be able to break into the top 20 or top 30 should not be very difficult. But in the men's game, it's very, very difficult. And then when it comes to the under 19 programs, I'm sure it's very possible to go further. And if we start early and if we start well, you never know.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. There's definitely a lot of ways to improve and get better, I suppose. You can't stand static. You always got to look at ways to improve and get better when it comes to anything in life, but also in cricket, in terms of a cricket team or a governing body like the ICC. They can always do better because you want to try and grow and develop the sport. You don't want to try to exclude people or countries from doing that. So, yeah, many people have different perspectives and opinions about the ICC and what they're doing in certain aspects, really, when it comes to associate cricket, but also the game of cricket in general, because international cricket's at a weird sort of state at the moment, and they need to try and sort out those problems. But in terms of growth and development in Norway, when it comes to cricket, are you seeing a lot more girls participate in these programs that you've established in Norway?
Again, like we started this last year. So until last year, there were nearly no young girls playing cricket. Some playing in the boys' team, and then you'll see one girl at a time, really. And then we started last summer this open ground offer. So every Friday through the summer, we had an open ground where anybody can come and try cricket. And that has really helped us. So a lot of young girls, they came, and then now they have been formally inducted into the clubs. And that's how we are starting our first under 17 series this summer, because now 3 clubs have these young girls who were recruited last summer. This comes from one of the girls. Her sister was playing cricket, and still this younger one was never coming to the cricket training or not even coming to try to the club trainings. And she told me that she felt that there's an obligation. If you go to the club training, then maybe you have to go again, or some sort of obligation. And when she realized there's an open training, and it's fine if you never go back again, or you don't go back for the 3 weeks and then you just go on the 4th week. She said that helped her overcome this inhibition and just show up. And when she showed up, and then she continued, and now she's training every week. She is one of the aspirants for our national team now. She's just 15-year-old, but yeah. So we have discussed this a lot about cultural limitations or those kind of things. We felt that having an open ground where anybody can just come and try cricket without any obligation, without any expectation, that helps us to bring these young girls inside. And once they come, then they're ready to take the challenges. But if you just invite them to a club session, to a team, then probably they overthink, they think too much, and then they never start.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah, it's about making it exciting rather than boring.
Making it exciting, and then like really having the fun factor very, very important. And then starting with like no expectation, no pressure. And once they're into the game, then you can throw these things in for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But not in the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. In terms of the natives, in terms of people from Norway who were born and raised in Norway, have you seen an increased number, or have you seen people who are Norwegians interested in cricket and wanting to learn more about it from these programs? Have you noticed those numbers?
Yeah, as I said, right, we do have these school projects, and there we have native Norwegian kids trying cricket, and they enjoy it then, right? They do it for a week and they really enjoy it. But then we haven't been able to structure it in a way where we can follow them up. So I'm sure there will be interest. We just have to find time and resources to build a program like this where we can track these children.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, that's very encouraging to hear. So hopefully that continues to grow and be stronger in the years to come. In terms of local communities and clubs, tell us about the clubs and the communities and people setting up these local cricket clubs in Norway. Tell us a bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, traditionally the clubs have been kind of a bunch of people who want to play cricket. They just start a club, right? So
Yeah.
that's how the clubs have been. But again, in the recent years, the clubs are getting more structured, and then they're getting teams for kids and for girls and women. But yeah, then it's again a process which has started. So there are several clubs who have a proper structure, and especially these are clubs who are kind of part of a multi-sports club. So
Yeah.
they already had the structure, and then the cricket took it from them. So yeah, so we have two kinds of clubs. So either the club is a part of a multi-sports club, or it's a cricket club alone. And then when it's just a cricket club, then of course it may not be very big and may not have a structure and a lot of teams. It could be just two teams. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good to hear about people in these communities organizing cricket clubs and wanting to promote and grow the game. I suppose you hear these stories, I suppose, in many other associate countries where people just. I even heard a story in Spain about this guy when I spoke to Spain Cricket for this series.
Mhm.
And I was told this story about this guy in Spain that made a cricket ground.
Yeah.
Just made a cricket ground in this field. It just, did all that, put the grass in and the pitch and all that stuff. And then this other story I heard from Germany about this New Zealand guy who went to
Mhm.
this village, this little village in Germany to establish a cricketing club and all that stuff. And it's really taken off there. So you hear these stories of people bringing cricket to these communities in these associate countries, etc.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of personal stories, because that's how things start, right?
Yeah,
Like how
definitely.
we started this open training last year for girls, and how we are like from that now we are three teams of under 17 girls, and then
Yeah.
we'll see how this grows. So there's a lot of personal stories, and then how a couple of us we decided that we can start this program. We just started, and now it looks like it is successful.
Yeah,
But then
definitely.
it needs a lot of energy to keep doing it
Yeah.
continuously, and you can never stop. You just have to keep doing it.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
It's all about just trying to be consistent and stick at it, I
Sure.
suppose. Mm, definitely. In terms of other countries, have you sought advice from other countries about how to go about growing and developing cricket in Norway? Have you talked to other countries within the associate world, or maybe full member countries or something like that?
Yeah, again, this brings up the Nordic partnership that we have, and then there are meetings very often where the federations come together and then discuss how to build things. They apply for funding together. Uh, yeah, and then of course, then we have four Nordic events where again we come together. So we have two events for women, one for under 19 boys, and then one for men. So over the year we have four events. And in addition, again, then there are these ICC workshops or ICC meetings where, like the president or the general secretary, they go and then talk to other people. So we are definitely trying to learn, and that's how we can develop, right? You don't need to reinvent the wheel. If something works somewhere else, you get to know how it works, and then you just follow it. So,
Yeah,
like the
that's
school project that I was telling you that we are trying to establish. The idea comes from Czech Republic, where they started it, and it was successful, and then until COVID came, and then the whole thing fell off.
yeah,
But they were running a very successful school program in Czech Republic, about which I've heard from people. So then I want to emulate the same in Norway.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's right. There's a template and a formula to follow when it comes to these things, and you just follow it and just see how it goes and put your own spin on it, I suppose, and
Exactly.
your own take on it.
Mhm.
But yeah, for these associate countries, that's often the difficult thing is consistency and just persevering. And hopefully, these programs work in terms of growing and developing the sport and in these associate countries, which is the main thing. That's what you want to try to
Yeah,
achieve.
sure.
So really encouraging, and that. In terms of strategy and that, does Norway, the federation, they have a strategic plan, which many associate boards would have,
Yes.
about going into the future in terms of how to structure cricket going forward. So, can you tell us a little bit about the plan, or if that's out of your remit?
Sure. So, I mean, we do have, of course, a strategic plan.
Yeah.
That is the most important document that we follow, right? And then we make these, I think, 5-year or 6-year strategic plan at a time. So we started a new cycle last year, which we are following right now. So the main values of the strategic program is that we must include, we must reflect, we must include, we must respect, and we must engage. So we understand that engaging is very important if we want to grow the game in this country, right? And then again, the whole program has 4 pillars. And then the 4 pillars are, the first thing what we need is to develop cricket among children and the young people. And then the second is the facilities. So we need more grounds, we need more training facilities, because without that, we cannot do anything.
Yeah.
Then the third pillar is how we would have organizational development. Like you were asking me about the clubs. So we want the clubs to become stronger, be more organized, do more cooperative work with each other, right? And then of course, then the last pillar is the performance part of it, like the national teams, the men, women, and the under-19 national teams. So this is how the strategy document has been built, and this is what we are following right now.
Yeah, definitely. That's really encouraging to hear. And it's always important to have these plans in place and a certain structure and that, which is fantastic to hear. But it was good to hear your thoughts on the growth and development side of cricket in Norway, how that's being developed and being run. So it's good to hear all these programs and initiatives that you're putting in place to really promote the sport in Norway, and it sounds really encouraging, which is fantastic. So good to hear all that, Pooja, and good to hear that the people behind the scenes in the Norway Cricket Federation are doing a good job when it comes to this as well. So it's fantastic to hear that. So thank you for sharing that with us, and hopefully it continues to grow and develop, and the game can prosper in Norway from all these initiatives and programs. And let's hope it does. It sounds really promising and encouraging, which is fantastic. Well, Pooja, we've reached the end of a long interview. It's had full of many different things that have happened in this interview today. I can't really sum it up. But we've got one more topic to discuss, Pooja, before we wrap up. I know it's very early in the morning there in India. So we'll try and wrap this up so you can get some sleep. So let's talk about what the future holds for cricket in Norway. I thought that's the best way to end our chat today. It's very hard to predict the future, as we know. It's very uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen. But I thought it's a good way just to
journal and do some brainstorming. Make predictions.
So it did happen, yeah?
Not again. Siri has interrupted me again for the second interview in a row. Oh dear. Oh, gee. Oh, this interview's had it all today, hasn't it? It's just one of those days, isn't it? Bear with us, everyone. Anyway, we keep rolling. Take number 2, as they say in the movies.
Yes.
Right. Where was I? Before Siri rudely interrupted what I was saying. As I was saying, it's very hard to predict the future, as we know, and it's very uncertain. But it's nice to, see what the outlook is in the future and your thoughts on that, looking into the crystal ball. So, Pooja, how do you see Norway cricket and associate cricket going into the future? Your thoughts on that?
So I think the global game is becoming bigger, like the T20 World Cup coming up in America, right? and then the 2028 Olympics coming up. So now people are hearing more about cricket, right? And then, of course, this T20 World Cup in the US, we will see how this changes the game, because I think this will definitely change the game. So, with the global game growing, I'm quite confident that the game will grow in individual countries, because the popularity will increase, more people will know about the sports. And then in a country like Norway, where the sports culture is very, very strong. So like everybody plays the sports. There is like nobody who doesn't play, essentially. So they do something about. They will do some sports, some kind of training, some kind of activity. So that way, I see that in Norway, we definitely have a potential to develop this game to the next level. It just needs the right strategy, the right planning, the right process, the right people with enough time to put into this. Yeah. And then the funding and everything. But the possibility is definitely there. And now, if Yusuf was still with us, he would have told you that the board has passed a new, we can't say it as a rule, but like a decision. It's a decision that all the clubs now have to develop youth and children teams. And they have been given time until 2027. So they will be, of course, given guidance and help from the committees and from the federation. But then all clubs need to develop these youth teams. So that will then enhance our youth structure, right? It will make this youth structure stronger. And as soon as we can do that, then we can achieve a lot of other things.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think we are really on the right track, and then the right people are working for that. So hopefully we get there.
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic. It was great to hear your thoughts and looking into the crystal ball about the future of Norway cricket and associate cricket. The future is bright for both. And you got to be optimistic, and you got to, keep believing that it can be a success and it can grow the sport in Norway, but also associate cricket as a whole can grow and develop as well, which it's starting to do around the world, which is fantastic. So very promising, but we won't know until it happens.
Exactly.
As I said, it's very hard to predict, and it's very uncertain, the future. But let's hope it's a very bright, sort of optimistic future ahead for Norway cricket and associate cricket. I think everyone wants that for the game to continue to grow and develop. Absolutely. So thank you for that, Pooja, sharing your thoughts on that. Well, Pooja, thank you for joining me today for this Associate Cricket Series episode to discuss all things Norway cricket.
Yeah,
and
thank you so much for having me.
For those who are still listening with us in this interview, it's been a weird interview. Probably one of the weirdest ones I've done on the podcast. It started with Yousuf in his car. I've never interviewed someone in their car before. And then his phone battery died, and then he had no charger. So then Pooja had to take over. But we got there in the end, and then Siri interrupted me for the second chat in a row. So note to self, turn my phone off, is probably the memo to learn from this chat. As we say in cricket, Pooja, you always learn from every game that you play.
Exactly.
Same with me. Every episode I do, I learn. So
I would say this interview of yours has been the most associate interview, because really associate cricket is like this. Anything can happen, and then doesn't matter what happens, you have to keep going forward. That's the only way to keep going forward, right? If you stop just because something happened, then you're never going to go forward. And every time something happens, you don't have something breaks down. You don't have, there is a lot of not that you have, right? So, but you manage with whatever you get.
Yeah, that's right. As they say, cricket's unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. And that's what happened in this interview today. So, well, we got through it in the end, I suppose. And we had a great chat anyway. I learned loads. Despite the technical difficulties, despite the interruptions from Siri, we got there in the end. As you said, we just plow on and go forward. You don't stop. So it
Exactly.
has been a very associate cricket sort of interview. It sort of fits into the series, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely.
Interview. The madness of associate cricket behind the scenes that happens on a day-to-day basis. But despite that, Pooja, if people want to get in touch with you or the Norway Cricket Federation, if they want to learn more or have some inquiries that would like to make, where can people do that?
They can obviously go to our website, which is Norges Cricket Forbund, the website, and then they will find the contact details of the administrative staff as well as the board members. Yeah, and then the other committees which are working for cricket. So all the contact information is over there. And then obviously people are very welcome to contact Yousuf or myself. Yeah,
definitely. We'll leave links to those in the description of this episode for people to check out Norway cricket. And if you're in Norway and if you want to learn more about cricket, you can access those resources and sites. Or if you just want to see what's happening over there in Norway, you can do a bit of research as well, which is fantastic. Before we go, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. So the podcast is available on Anchor, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Once again, thank you, Pooja and Yousuf, for joining me today to discuss all things Norway cricket. I hope all of you watching or listening to this Associate Cricket Series episode learned a lot about cricket in Norway from Pooja and Yousuf when he was here before he dropped out with technical difficulties. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.